coming soon. Because we love you at Folktale Family, here's a quick summary of part 1 for those who have forgotten or will soon watch. Two witches named Chief Anya and Lady Nkechi fight for their daughters to marry Prince Obi, the prince of the kingdom of Okoye. Chief Anya's daughter Ada and Lady Nkechi's daughter Nina were friends turned enemies because of their parents' actions. In part 1, the witches used different magical tactics on the prince to fight for his love, but it seems Anya has won. He successfully gave the prince a love potion that made him fall in love with Ada, but Lady Nkechi is not done with him yet. In the heart of the ancient kingdom of Owerri, where the rivers sang to the moon and the spirits of the ancestors still whispered in the wind, the battle for Prince Obi's heart had reached a dangerous new chapter. For a while, it seemed as if peace had settled. Prince Obi, cured by Ada's mysterious drink, had grown fond of her. He smiled at her more, asked for her opinion on matters, even took slow walks with her through the palace gardens. Ada had hope again. But as with all things touched by magic, hope in Owerri was a slippery thing. Soon the prince began to change again. His laughter with Ada faded. His smiles became weaker. One day, as they sat beneath the flowering Ugba tree in the palace gardens, Ada noticed he kept sighing and rubbing his eyes. "Are you tired?" she asked gently. The prince nodded, looking away. "Maybe. I just feel like I'm missing something." Ada tried to continue the conversation, asking him about music, the festival, even the taste of palm wine, anything to pull him in, but Obi only gave short answers and stared at the floor. That was when she walked in. Nina. Dressed in a bright red wrapper, holding a folded map, she strolled across the garden like she wasn't trying to be noticed, but knew she already was. "Excuse me," Nina said sweetly, turning to Obi and Ada. "Do either of you know where the new eatery is? I heard they serve agusi with real bushmeat." Prince Obi lifted his head, sniffed the air, and blinked like a man waking from sleep. His eyes locked on Nina. "That scent," he whispered. "You smell divine." "Oh," Nina giggled, blushing. "It's just something Mama gave me." "Let me escort you," Obi said suddenly, rising to his feet. Ada stood up, shocked. "But I thought we were—" "Later, Ada," he waved, already walking beside Nina. Ada stood frozen as she watched her best friend accidentally win the prince again. Curious, her heart tight with unease, she followed them. They reached the new eatery at the edge of the palace grounds. Inside, a waitress greeted them. Only one table left. For two. Prince Obi didn't even hesitate. "Can Nina sit with me?" Ada's heart cracked. As she turned to leave, Obi called out, "Ada, wait." She stopped, her eyes welling with tears. Obi walked to her, reached into her hair, and pulled out the small white flower she always wore. Then he walked back to Nina and tucked the flower into her hair. Nina blushed again. Ada stormed off without a word. "Have you ever seen your best friend win over someone you secretly loved?" Back home, Ada burst into her father's chamber. "He's back under a spell," she cried. "Father, she smelled different." He acted like she was a goddess. Chief Anya sat up straight. "She smelled different, you say?" Ada nodded. "Like fresh rain and pawpaw blossoms." Anya gasped. "Oh no, not the perfume potion." "What?" "There are love charms, and then there are perfume potions. Stronger, more dangerous. If she's using that, we're in trouble." That night, Anya summoned Nwani, the same palace maid who once helped him spike the prince's food. "I need you again," he whispered. "Sneak into Lady Nkechi's house. Find that perfume. Bring it to me." Nwani nodded, pocketed the coin, and crept out. She snuck into Nina's empty house through the window like a squirrel. She tiptoed across the living room into the bedroom, and there, on the table, stood the bottle of perfume. She reached for it, but as she turned to leave, she froze. Standing at the door, arms folded, was Lady Nkechi. Well, Nkechi said coldly. "Stealing again, Nwani?" Prince Obi sent me," Nwani stammered, hiding the perfume behind her back. "Oh? Then what's in your bag?" Nkechi asked, her voice calm but dangerous. Nwani turned to run. "Shh!" Nkechi tossed a handful of herbs at her, chanting under her breath. In a flash, Nwani dropped her bag, her nose shrunk, her ears stretched, and in place of a maid stood a rat, squeaking and scrambling out the window. "Okay, be honest, if you could turn one annoying person into a rat for a day, who would it be? Comment below, but no tagging." Meanwhile, back in the palace, the winds were shifting. The next morning, Emeka, the local medicine man with eyes always half closed in visions, appeared before King Aka. "Your Majesty," he said, bowing. There is something unnatural happening. I have seen visions. Someone is using a perfume, not an ordinary one, to twist the prince's heart. The king narrowed his eyes. A perfume? Yes, your majesty. You must act. That very day, King Akka sent guards to search the houses of every young woman the prince had recently loved. The kingdom buzzed. Gossip flew faster than flies at a fruit stand. Uzo, Lady Nkechi's loyal helper, ran to her mistress. The guards are coming. Lady Nkechi's eyes darted. They must not find it. Take the perfume. Drop it in Ada's house. Make it look like she bewitched the prince. Uzo grabbed the bottle and sprinted into the streets. But the guards saw her. Stop, one shouted. Why are you running? Uzo fumbled her words. I'm going to the market. They looked at her sweaty face and bulging bag. Open it, the lead guard ordered. Inside was the perfume. Uzo was seized on the spot and dragged to the palace. From a distance, Lady Nkechi watched in horror as her plan unraveled. At the palace, King Akka called for a full village council meeting. Chiefs, elders, warriors, and curious villagers gathered in the great courtyard. Chief Anya arrived with a proud smile. He had heard Uzo had been caught. He could already taste victory. She will confess, he whispered to himself. Nkechi will be finished. Ada will marry the prince. Ha! Uzo was brought forward, standing before the king, the queen, and the whispering crowd. Why? Asked King Akka, his voice deep like thunder. Were you caught with a perfume meant to bewitch my son? Uzo trembled. Chief Anya leaned forward in his seat, smiling. My king, she began, the perfume is not mine. It was given to me by... From the crowd, Lady Nkechi whispered a spell. Spirits! Shut her mouth! Uzo's mouth moved, but no sound came out. Gasps filled the crowd. She's mute, someone shouted. Chief Anya frowned. Something was wrong. He leaned back, muttered a counterspell. Spirits, open her mouth! Uzo coughed and her voice returned. It was given to me by... Lady Nkechi muttered again. Spirits, shut her mouth! Again, her voice vanished. This time, Uzo's heart pounded. She realized something terrible. She was a pawn caught between two powerful witches. She took a breath. When Chief Anya gave her voice back once more, she quickly shouted, Emeka the medicine man! The crowd erupted. Seize him, the king ordered. Guards dragged a stunned Emeka forward. Wait, what? He cried. She's lying. She said you gave her the perfume, the king growled, to curse the prince so your ugly daughter could marry him. What daughter? I don't even have. Chief Anya, furious at Uzo's betrayal, hissed a spell that silenced her again. She's mute again, the queen shouted. The king banged his staff. So now you silence her too? What? I didn't, Emeka tried to say. Enough, the king shouted. Take him away. The guards hauled Emeka out, still protesting. Chief Anya sat in stunned silence. Lady Nkechi hid a smug smile. King Aka stood. This court is cursed with darkness. From today I decree my son shall no longer choose a wife from this village. He will look to other villages for a bride. Let this madness end. Gasps, whispers, chaos. Lady Nkechi's smile faded. Chief Anya closed his eyes in dread. The war had gone too far, and now the prince might leave them both behind. And so the battle between the witches now took a new form, not just to win the prince's love, but to keep him from leaving forever. The game was far from over. It was just changing into something much more dangerous. The sun rose slowly over the red hills of Owerri, casting golden light over rooftops and rippling water pots. But the peace of that morning did not match the storm brewing in the palace. Inside the royal courtyard, drummers beat softly. The air was filled with perfume, chatter, silk gowns rustling, and the stiff, nervous laughter of royal fathers and mothers. The great King Akka had made a decision the day before, one that spread through the land like wildfire. Since his son, Prince Obi, had been caught in too many rumors, charms, and accusations involving the village maidens, the king declared that new daughters from royal families in faraway kingdoms should be brought to the palace to compete for the prince's heart. Let fresh winds blow into Owerri, the king had said, before our son is trapped forever by witchcraft and scheming tongues. So now, for the first time in generations, the palace of Owerri was flooded with foreign royalty. Maidens from across rivers and across mountains, maidens from kingdoms with strange names and stranger dialects, maidens with dazzling jewelry, trained smiles, and parents with gold to boast. Among the observers was Chief Anya, seated in his embroidered seat, stroking his beard with a forced smile. Beside him sat Lady Nkechi, fanning herself slowly, her sharp eyes scanning the crowd like a hawk looking for prey. They had been enemies for moons, rivals in shadows and spellwork. But today they had a common goal. No one must outshine their daughters. Lady Nkechi rose from her seat and slipped away from the council area. Outside, she walked slowly past the line of royal maidens sitting under the shade, nervously rehearsing their curtsies and introductions. Some were fanning themselves, others holding mirrors, adjusting every strand of hair. One girl was laughing so confidently that even the birds paused to listen. Another girl had skin that shimmered like water under sunlight. Lady Nkechi looked from one to the other, and her heart sank a little. "These girls," she muttered, "too fine, too proud." Suddenly, she felt someone standing behind her. It was Chief Anya. "You see what I see?" he asked. She nodded slowly. "Some of them are even finer than our daughters." Anya didn't reply. They both looked at a maiden whose dress was made entirely of beads. "We must stop them all," Lady Nkechi whispered. Anya raised a brow. "You suggest we work together?" Lady Nkechi sighed. "Only for today. Then we go back to fighting like cats and owls." Anya grinned. "Agreed." And so the witches of Oweri became allies for a day. A deadly day. Inside the palace, King Ukka had gathered a council of respected elders, chiefs, and warriors to help judge the royal maidens. Among them sat Chief Anya and Lady Nkechi, side by side but worlds apart. The drums rolled. The king raised a hand. "Let the maidens begin." The first maiden stepped in. She wore gold from her neck to her ankles. Her voice was sweet and her smile gentle. "I am Princess Adaku of Owerinta Kingdom," she said proudly. "I bring peace and strength." As she began to explain her culture, Chief Anya quietly muttered a spell under his breath, barely moving his lips. "Spirits, make her speak the opposite of what she means." Suddenly, instead of grace, Adaku began to insult everyone. "You look like tired goats," she told the council. "This palace smells like unwashed socks." The entire room gasped. "What did you say?" a council member barked. "I said," she tried to recover, but her mouth betrayed her again, "that I've seen better kings in rat holes." Her parents rushed in, horrified. "Please, she's a good girl." But Adaku turned to them and snapped, "Wow, can someone get these two pigs away from here? If we weren't rich, I would have disowned myself from this family." The guards dragged the family out as the council groaned. Next came a soft-spoken girl from the east. She curtsied with beauty and grace. "What is your name, child?" asked the king. Lady Nkechi whispered, "Spirits. Make her forget her goal." The girl blinked, smiled, and turned around. "Thank you all. This was a lovely interview," she said cheerfully and walked out. The council exchanged confused glances. Did the interview happen? They sent someone after her. She refused to return. "I nailed it," she told her mother proudly, who was too confused to argue. The next maiden walked in. Her dress sparkled like diamonds. She bowed low. Chief Anya muttered another spell. The moment she entered, the air changed. A disgusting odor filled the room. Everyone wrinkled their noses. Someone yelled, "What is that smell?" "My goodness, does she work in a waste pit?" someone asked. "Yes, my waist is pretty," the girl smiled, thinking they were complimenting her waist when they said waist. Her parents tried to help, but as they got closer, even they ran away. "My daughter, what is happening?" The king handed her a bottle of perfume. "Go, please." Then came the perfectionist. Lady Nkechi had noticed her earlier, always checking her lips, her hair, even the thread of her wrapper. So before she entered, Nkechi whispered, "Let her skin break out." The moment the maiden looked into the palace mirror, her face was covered with pimples. Her scream was louder than the drummers. "No, no, 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 not today." She ran out, crying, and refused to return. Lady Nkechi leaned back with a satisfied smile. Then came the one in the most elegant dress, flowing blue lace, shining earrings. Chief Anya muttered, "Let there be a rat." As she entered, a rat scurried out from beneath her gown. The king nearly fell from his chair. "Guards! Take her away!" The girl screamed, running, the rat chasing behind her. Next, a name was called. Princess Ijeoma, daughter of the River Clan. Silence. They called again. No one came. Unbeknownst to them, Lady Nkechi had cast a spell of slumber, and the girl was curled up asleep in one of the palace bedrooms. Her mother, panicked, marched into the hall. "If my daughter won't marry the prince, I will," she declared. "What? You are older than my mother," Prince Obi shouted. The woman winked. "Age is but a number." She licked her lips and charged toward him. Guards, yelled the king. She was wrestled away, still screaming, I can cook better than any of them. One by one, Chief Anya and Lady Nkechi destroyed every single candidate. Stuttering spells, shameful odors, wandering animals, fading memories, public tears, until, by evening, there were no maidens left. King Aka stood in fury. I am ashamed, he roared. I brought in royal blood and we got madness. The room went silent. I have changed my mind, the king continued. No more maidens from outside. We shall host a competition next month. A contest of skills, beauty, cooking, singing, wisdom, and grace. The prince shall choose from among our village girls. Then he stormed out, his robe flying behind him. Outside the palace, under the shade of the African pear tree, Chief Anya and Lady Nkechi met, both grinning for the first time in many moons. Did you see that girl run after the rat? Anya chuckled. And the one with the pimples. I nearly fell off my chair. Nkechi laughed. Today was a good day. A wicked day, Nkechi corrected. They laughed together like mischievous school children, both holding their stomachs in glee. But then Lady Nkechi stopped laughing. Her face turned serious. Our alliance ends now, she said softly. Anya nodded. Of course, the prince will now choose from among Ada and Nina. We are no longer allies. They shook hands. Their eyes locked. The war had just become personal again. Okay, let's talk. If you were the king, what kind of competition would you add to choose the best bride for the prince? Drop a fun suggestion in the comments. Would you have survived this interview day? And so, the drums of Oweri grew silent once more, but deep beneath the silence, magic stirred. The next battle would not be fought with frogs or perfume, but with wit, skill, beauty, and fire. If you've gone this far, please don't forget to support this small channel by liking and subscribing to get more interesting stories like this on your YouTube. In the days leading up to the great masked maiden competition, the kingdom of Oweri pulsed with anticipation. The air was thick with spice, secrets, and speculation. Children played games pretending to be the prince, choosing his masked bride. Women gossiped by the river about which maiden might win, and men placed bets in quiet corners of the market. But under all that noise and celebration, two shadows moved with purpose. Chief Anya and Lady Nkechi, sworn enemies, witches of the old world and parents of two contenders. The rules were clear. All maidens would wear masks. They would be judged on 4 things: cooking, singing, dancing, and beauty. At the final celebration, the prince would choose the maiden that captured his heart, and only then would he remove her mask and marry her. But with magic swirling behind every smile, nothing would be simple. The cooking competition. The palace square was transformed into a festival ground. Long tables were laid out under colorful canopies, and the scent of firewood and herbs filled the air. Masked maidens, draped in flowing gowns of every color, prepared their meals. Among them, Ada stood radiant in a shimmering blue gown, her mask decorated with small ocean shells. Her father, Anya, had spent the whole night brewing a powerful love potion, a thick, dark herb blend known only to the oldest witches of Oweri. It would not only make the prince fall for the cook, but crave their presence. He had picked every single love herb in the land. Lady Nkechi would find none, and she didn't. Earlier that morning, Nkechi had scoured the hills, the riverbanks, even the sacred trees where such herbs once grew. But nothing. Anya, she hissed, you sly tortoise. But Lady Nkechi was not one to panic. She had her own plans. When Ada finished preparing her delicious yam porridge made with goat meat, spices, and the love potion, she covered the pot and placed it aside for presentation. Her dress was spotless, her spirit was high. In the shadows, Uzo, the palace maid and secret servant of Lady Nkechi, crept forward and switched the pots. It was done in seconds. Meanwhile, Chief Anya sprinkled the potion into what he believed was Ada's food, whispering ancient words under his breath. Then he stepped back, confident. The drummers rolled. A loud voice called out, "Masked maiden in blue, step forward!" Ada walked gracefully, her steps light, her confidence high. Her blue mask glinted in the sunlight as she carried the heavy pot. Chief Anya smiled proudly, but something felt off. The pot she was holding was not the same pot that Ada had cooked in. Someone had switched the pots. "That's not the pot," he muttered, squinting. He stood. "Ada!" He tried to yell, but the roar of the crowd drowned him out. Prince Obi sat at the judging table, regal and charming, already holding his spoon. She placed the pot down, curtsied, and waited. The prince scooped. He tasted, and he blinked. "Are you representing the ocean today?" he asked, raising an eyebrow. Ada tilted her head. "My prince? Because this soup is saltier than the sea." The crowd gasped. Ada's hands trembled. She looked at the pot. "This isn't," she whispered. The prince cleared his throat. "Thank you. That will be all." Ada bowed and ran off stage, tears burning behind her mask. Even with her identity hidden, she felt the heat of shame crawl across her face. Chief Anya stared in disbelief. Then the announcer called again, "Masked maiden in red, step forward." Nina appeared, dressed in a rich red gown with golden lace. On her head was the stolen pot, the one containing the love potion. As she walked forward, the Lady Nkechi smiled slightly, folding her arms. "You thief," Anya whispered. But he acted quickly. He closed his eyes, raised a finger behind his robe, and muttered, "Gbada Nala," fall to the ground. Just as Nina reached the table, the pot slipped from her hands, crashing onto the floor. Hot soup splattered everywhere. The audience screamed. The prince jumped up. "You were supposed to serve it, not bathe the ground with it," he barked. Nina, mortified, turned and fled. Lady Nkechi's smile vanished. Anya exhaled, victorious. But before anyone could recover, a third voice spoke. "May I approach?" Heads turned. From the edge of the forest that bordered the palace ground, a maiden emerged in a golden gown, her mask made of polished bronze. She walked with quiet grace, holding a pot steaming with delicious aroma. "Who is she?" whispered a councilman. "I don't remember her in the list," said another, but she was too elegant to stop. She placed the pot before Prince Obi. He took one spoonful. He smiled immediately, closed his eyes. "Maiden in gold, may I take this pot with me?" he asked, almost shy. She chuckled. "It would be my honor." He beamed. "I'll be looking forward to seeing you again." And with that, she bowed and vanished back into the forest. Chief Anya and Lady Nkechi both sat stunned. "Who was that?" Lady Nkechi asked her neighbor. He shook his head. Anya stared at Nkechi in deep anger. How dare she put his efforts to waste? But just then, they both knew that the war was going to get bloodier, and the winner would be the one that struck the hardest. Day 2, the singing competition. The next morning, the sun rose lazily. The palace garden was converted into a performance stage. Flowers decorated the benches, birds gathered on trees as if waiting for a concert. The prince sat in front, expectant. "Masked maiden in blue," came the call. Ada stepped forward again, this time confident. She opened her mouth and... The sound that came out was not music. It was the growl of a lioness with a sore throat. Gasps, whispers. Even the prince blinked. Chief Anya stared in horror. Then his eyes darted around the crowd. He saw Lady Nkechi, lips twitching in subtle laughter. "You vile python," he growled. He muttered a counterspell. Ada cleared her throat, and this time, a beautiful melody poured out of her. She sang a sweet lullaby, a song of stars and rivers, a tune her late mother once sang to her as a baby. The crowd was mesmerized. When she finished, even the prince clapped. Then it was Nina's turn. She stepped forward in her red gown. The crowd was expectant. She opened her mouth and barely anything came out. She strained, sang, tried harder. But her voice was like wind through a crack, thin, weak, almost silent. She looked into the crowd, searching for her mother. Lady Nkechi stood to say, "A spell," but before she could open her lips, Anya struck first. He whispered, "Your mouth shall not open for 30 minutes. Her jaw froze. She tried to talk. Nothing. Her eyes widened. "Anya!" she screamed in her head. For 10 long minutes, Nina struggled, voice barely louder than a sigh. She left the stage in tears. A joyous melody then came out of the forest. Out stepped the gold maiden again. She walked from the forest, the sunlight kissing her golden gown. As she sang, birds circled the air. A butterfly landed on her shoulder. The prince leaned forward, entranced. When she finished, he stood and clapped. "Your voice," he whispered, "is from the heavens." She curtsied and left, just as mysteriously as she came. After the competition, Lady Nkechi stormed into the sacred grove where Anya was meditating. "You dare hex my daughter?" Anya didn't open his eyes. "You switched my daughter's pot." Nkechi folded her arms. "So we are even?" Anya opened one eye. "We are never even." They stood in silence, both thinking the same thing. Who is the girl in gold? Is she a real contestant, a spirit, or someone with her own secret plan? Comment your wildest theory below. This is getting deeper. The game was only halfway through, and the next round, dancing, was about to set the kingdom on fire. The drummers beat louder than the heartbeat of the earth. The kingdom of Oweri was alive, so alive, that even the trees seemed to sway with gossip. The long-awaited dancing competition had arrived, and the crowd poured into the palace grounds like ants on spilled honey. The scent of roasted yam, fried plantain, and powdered chalk filled the air. It was a festival, yes, but beneath the celebration simmered the tension of sorcery. And in the middle of it all stood two giants of the hidden world, Chief Anya and Lady Nkechi, both preparing for war. Far from the palace, in a grove wrapped with silk from ancient spiders and guarded by charms that made goats speak backward, lived Kimora, a shadowy witch known only to the council as the Weaver of Steps. Her power? Creating enchanted dancing shoes, but only one pair per year. And from a leather so sacred, it was said to be pulled from the dreams of forest spirits. Lady Nkechi arrived first, swaying through the twisted trees in a deep red cloak. "Kimora," she called, "I've come for the shoes." From the shadows, Kimora emerged, skin glowing faintly under her black veil. But Lady Nkechi's breath caught. Standing by the fire, smiling casually, was Chief Anya. "You?" Kimora raised her hand. "Peace. He came before you." "You dare betray me?" Nkechi hissed. "Betray?" Kimora laughed. "You pay in cowries, but Anya here, he pays in gold and gossip. He even told me about your stingy habits." Lady Nkechi, fuming, dropped her own bag. It hit the floor with the weight of kingdoms, silver, gold, cowries, rare herbs. "Take it," she said, "and give me the shoes." Kimora looked between them and sighed. So many enemies, so little silk. She handed the one-of-a-kind shoes to Lady Nkechi. Anya's face darkened. Nkechi smirked. "Good luck next year." But as she vanished into the shadows, Kimora turned to Anya. "I did as you asked. Now pay me." Anya pulled out a dark crystal and handed it over, because everything had been an act. He had come earlier, knowing Nkechi would beg for the shoes. He asked Kimora to weave a spell of reversal, one that would make the shoes beautiful but useless, their magic reversed into mockery. That evening, back at her compound, Lady Nkechi presented the shoes to Nina. "Put them on," she urged. "They'll make your legs fly like feathers." Nina hesitated. "But, Mama, I wanted to wear these." She lifted a worn box from under her bed. Inside were a pair of red shoes, faded but polished clean. "Papa gave them to me before he died." Nkechi's face softened, but she still shook her head. "Those are memories. These are weapons," Nina sighed. "I know Ada is the best dancer, but I've practiced every moon since last year. Shoes or no shoes, I'll dance. Win, at all costs," Nkechi said firmly. Nina nodded, placed her red shoes aside, and laced the enchanted black ones. The courtyard was packed. Musicians tuned their drums. Birds circled the trees, drawn by some unseen rhythm. The crowd vibrated with energy. "Masked maiden in blue," came the call. Ada stepped forward, graceful in her blue gown and matching shoes. She danced like water, fluid, powerful, almost floating. She was the best dancer in the village, so the moves came naturally to her. People cheered. Even the prince leaned forward, impressed. Then, masked maiden in red, Nina appeared, black shoes tapping gently on the stone. The music began. She didn't move. Her eyes widened. She tried to lift her feet, but they were stuck to the floor. Lady Nkechi blinked in panic. "No." She turned sharply toward Kimora's grove in the distance, suddenly realizing, "You snake," she whispered. "You tricked me." From across the courtyard, Chief Anya smiled smugly. But then, something happened. Nina bent down, pulled off the enchanted shoes, and stepped forward barefoot. The drums continued. She closed her eyes, and she danced. She danced like the earth had always been her stage. Every movement told a story of fire, loss, survival, and rising again. The audience was silent. Even the trees stopped swaying. "Who is this masked goddess?" someone whispered. Some murmured she danced even better than Ada. From the back, Lady Nkechi's heart swelled with pride, but then froze in terror. The forest. Everyone would now look toward the forest, waiting for her, waiting for the Golden Maiden. Lady Nkechi turned and whispered a quick curse. The spell shot forward, growing into a thick wall of thorns, blocking the path from the forest to the palace. Immediately, Nina left the stage. Everybody in the crowd turned their heads towards the forest. The king, the prince, even the children all stared towards the bushes, awaiting the lady in gold. But nobody was to be seen, not even a moving leaf. The only thing there was the ugly wall of thorns. Lady Nkechi smiled. The crowd murmured. Where is she? Is the Golden Maiden not coming today? Even the prince's face darkened. But then, look at the stage! Gasps flew through the crowd like lightning. Standing right on the center of the stage was the Golden Maiden, dressed in a glorious golden dance outfit, her mask glowing with the light of the setting sun. No one saw her enter. The wall of thorns was still untouched. She didn't speak, she just danced. And the world stopped. She moved like wind kissing fire. The music bent around her. Birds flew overhead in perfect circles, forming golden halos. The drums followed her feet, not the other way around. Chief Anya rattled, whispered a spell to make her fall. He immediately tripped and slammed onto the ground. She deflected it? He gasped. Who was this woman? Even Lady Nkechi's eyes were wide with awe and fear. When the Golden Maiden finished, Prince Obi stood, applauding. My eyes have been blessed, he declared. She bowed, then disappeared once more, back into the forest. But this time the wall of thorns was gone. The final day was here. Beauty. Chief Anya had commissioned a tailor from Umunoha to make Ada's sky blue gown, a masterpiece. Lady Nkechi had sourced a stunning red gown with beads from ancient Nri. But just before the contest, Uzo snuck into Ada's dressing room, scissors in hand. She was halfway through cutting the gown when Chief Anya burst in. You again? He bellowed. She froze. Sent by Nkechi, no doubt. He cast a spell. You have 10 minutes to do the same to Nina's gown, or you'll turn into a snail. Uzo's eyes bulged. She fled the room without a word. Outside, she ran into Lady Nkechi. How did it go? Asked. Uzo ignored her, ran to Nina's dressing room, and did the same destruction. Later, she returned to confess the whole thing. Nkechi was furious. She stormed out to confront Anya, finding him with a tailor holding the tattered blue dress. Why would you stoop so low? You started it, Anya replied. You're destroying both our daughters. He paused. No, we are. They both fell quiet. A truce, Anya offered. Only to stop the real enemy, Nkechi replied. They agreed. No more magic. They bought simple dresses for their daughters and focused instead on discovering the truth about the Golden Maiden. The palace was like a festival of stars. Each maiden walked the red carpet, trying to outshine the others. Some wore jewelry made of crystals, others wore gowns made of feathers. The crowd applauded politely. But when Ada walked in her modest, beautifully cut sky blue dress, the murmurs turned to admiration. When Nina appeared in her elegant red dress, barefoot like during the dance, the people cheered. Then, the moment came. All eyes turned to the forest, and from its shadow stepped the Golden Maiden, dressed in a gown woven from sunlight and stories. Birds sang. Wind curled around her form. Even the trees leaned forward. She walked gracefully, glowing, unstoppable. Anya and Nkechi began to chant. Nothing worked. Animal summoning spells, fainting spells, falling spells, dress tattering spells. Nothing worked. Some of their spells bounced off like raindrops on a lion's mane. One caused Chief Anya to start sneezing uncontrollably. She's magic, Nkechi whispered. No, Anya said. She's more than magic. At the end, Prince Obi stood. My next wife will be the Golden Maiden. Tomorrow, I shall unmask her before the gods and the people. No. Nkechi and Anya shouted from opposite ends, but the decision was made. The Golden Maiden curtsied, thanked him, and walked silently into the forest. As the cheers faded, Anya and Nkechi slipped away, weaving quietly into the forest, secretly following her. Through the thick woods they went, dodging roots and vines, following the faint shimmer of her gown. Finally, by a river, still and glowing under moonlight, she stopped. Without turning, she spoke. I know you two are following me. They froze. She turned around slowly. Her fingers reached for her mask. She removed it, and her face was, wait! The identity will shock you, so before we continue, pause the video. Who you think the Golden Maiden is? Is she someone we know? A spirit? A stranger? Drop your wildest theory in the comments. Done? Okay, let's continue. The trees bent toward the river as if to listen. The moon hung low, casting silver light over the trembling water. And there she stood, back turned, golden gown shimmering like it was spun from sunlight itself. She slowly turned around. Lady Nkechi froze. Chief Anya gasped. It was Uzo, the palace maid, the quiet girl who had fetched herbs, the shadow that had whispered between orders, the girl who had once served roasted plantain at the palace gates with a shy smile. You? Lady Nkechi hissed. You. How? Uzo laughed, a soft, eerie sound that echoed off the trees. Yes, me. Why do you both look like you've seen a spirit? You betrayed me, Nkechi growled. After everything I gave you? Everything? Uzo snapped. You gave me nothing. Not even proper pay for the spells you forced me to perform. I risked my life for you. I fed lies to the council, poisoned pots, switched gowns, and you gave me stale yam and empty promises. Chief Anya narrowed his eyes. But if you hate her so much, why sabotage me? Why didn't you help Ada win? Uzo turned, her red eyes glowing. Because I didn't want Ada to have him either. The air froze. I love him, Uzo said. I've loved Prince Obi since the day he offered me palm wine when no one else noticed I was crying behind the palace kitchen. You're just a maid, Nkechi spat. You're not meant for him. Exactly, Uzo said. But then your greedy hands pushed the king into a mass competition, a game where anyone could win. And so I became the Golden Maiden. I studied your spells for years, Lady Nkechi, practiced in secret, watched your mouth movements when you chanted, wrote them down under my sleeping mat. I became powerful. She raised her arms. And now I won. The prince chose the lady in gold, not your blue dog, she pointed at Anya, and not your red cow. She pointed at Nkechi. Nkechi shrieked and shouted a spell. Bukaria, become a snail! The spell flared forward, but bounced off Uzo's golden gown like a pebble on stone. It reversed. Lady Nkechi screamed as her body twisted, melted, shrank, and became a slimy brown snail trembling on a fallen leaf. Chief Anya stepped back, horrified. Uzo smiled, dark and slow. The gown is a back-to-sender charm, sewn with river thread and mirror dust. She muttered again. A giant lion formed from wind and fire behind her. It roared. Anya ran. He crashed through branches, jumped over logs, and screamed like a market boy late for curfew. Behind him, the lion chased with thunder in its breath. Why me? He wailed. He dove behind a tree. A snake hissed beside him, aiming for his leg. He yelped and shouted, Bonway! Change. The snake stiffened, turned into a rope, but the lion found him again. Mbachi! Break. The lion shrank, became a house cat. He panted, finally catching his breath. Then came a slow hiss. He turned and saw Uzo. Her face was monstrous. Her skin was cracked like burnt ground. Her eyes were red as coals. She floated just above the forest floor. Why do you want to kill me? Anya asked. Because I saw how ruthless you were with Lady Nkechi, Uzo said. And I know you'd come for me next. Better to erase the threats before they rise. Anya paused. His breath slowed. His heart beat steady. Then he whispered, but Lady Nkechi, she never tried to kill me. He reached inside himself, deep into the magic roots of his soul, and whispered a spell. Kusina ebulia elu. Stop and lift her up. The snail uncurled. It shimmered. Grew. Lady Nkechi returned, gasping, her red wrapper covered in leaf slime. Anya, she shouted. Together, we must end this madness. They stood side by side, battered and ashamed. Then they raised their hands, chanted in unison. The wind twisted, the forest darkened. Uzo raised her own hands, but too late. Sorrow. Sorrow. We skid like dry leaves. There was a blinding flash. Uzo screamed and shrank again. Until, poof, a squirrel stood where she was, eyes still red, tail twitching. It chattered once, then darted up a tree and disappeared into the night. The unmasking ceremony approached faster than the sun. Morning broke like fire on water. Oweri's great palace was filled with color and music. The prince stood tall beside his father, the king. The red carpet glistened under the sun. Drums beat. The people waited. Today, the king announced, we unmask the Golden Maiden, our future princess of Oweri. The trumpet sounded, but no one came. Chief Anya, now dressed in blue, pulled Ada aside. The real Golden Maiden is gone, but no one knows who she is. Put on this. He held out a golden gown and mask. Go to the palace. Walk up. Let him unmask you. Ada hesitated. Is it not wrong? You want to be princess, don't you? She nodded, slipped into the gown, entered the carriage, but as they rode toward the palace, a faster carriage swept past them. Chief Anya peered through the curtains. Inside, Lady Nkechi and Nina, also dressed in gold. She had the same idea, Anya cursed. Faster! Faster! Back in the lead carriage, Nkechi chuckled and whispered, Riwahia! Eat grass. Anya's driver whipped the horse, only for it to veer off into a bush and begin eating leaves. What are you doing? Anya screamed. Anya, fuming, cursed again and said, Banala, sink. Nkechi's carriage screeched as the wheels sank into mud. Nina, run, she shouted. You must be first. Ada, go, Anya screamed. And the two girls, former best friends, ran side by side toward the palace. As they ran, sweat mixing with glitter and gold dust, Nina yelled, Ada, how did we become enemies? Because we deserve to be princess, Ada snapped. They shoved past stunned guards and reached the crowd, just in time to hear cheers. She's already here, they looked up. The prince stood hand in hand with someone, the golden maiden. He reached forward, slowly lifted the mask. Uzo, standing tall, smiling brightly, Prince Obi looked into her eyes. This is the woman I choose. The crowd erupted. Nina dropped to her knees. Ada gasped. Chief Anya and Lady Nkechi arrived seconds later, jaws open. Uzo's smile widened. See you at the wedding in 1 week. 1 week remains until the wedding. Anya turned slowly to Nkechi. We have 7 days. Yes, Nkechi replied. 7 days to stop a powerful, vengeful witch from becoming princess. They both looked at Uzo, now surrounded by dancing maidens, palace guards, and flower girls. She locked eyes with them, smiled again. Something darker glowed behind her gaze. They stepped back into the shadows, once enemies, now allies. The final battle had begun.